Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dream Space Live for World Space Week. My name is Michael, and I'm going to be one of your hosts for today's very special session. I'm also joined by
Lorraine.
So, Lorraine, thank you very much. Are you excited for World Space Week?
I'm super excited, Michael.
Excellent. Okay, so brilliant. So hopefully we have a whole lot of people hoping to grow up to be astronauts joining us today and so on. We have some really fun stuff we're going to be looking at, folks. So let's get stuck right into it. So first and foremost, what are we going to be learning today? So we're going to be understanding our universe. And what we mean by that, folks, is we're going to be exploring what space means. So if you're not caught up on what space is and you need that covered, we're going to be looking at that. We're going to also have a little bit of a discussion around the difference between a solar system and a galaxy, and then obviously why space exploration is so important, especially during Space Week. So I'm sure a lot of people are joining us really into space. If you're not, I hope by the end of today's session that you will be.
Hopefully.
What's the next thing we're going to be looking at, Lorraine?
Next, we're going to improve on our planetary knowledge, okay? So we're going to dive into some fascinating facts about specific planets like Venus and Jupiter. They're my two favorite. And we're going to learn how to distinguish between terrestrial planets and gas giants.
So gas giants are the ones that are like really good crack. They're really fun.
Exactly. Michael.
So that's going to be cool. So those are going to be two terms maybe you might not have heard about before. So naming the planets, I think a lot of people have covered, but that terrestrial planets and that gas giants kind of breakdown, that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, it will be, definitely.
Third of all, folks, we are going to be looking at coding. So we're going to get a brief introduction to computer science and coding. We're going to be working with the amazing platform MakeCode Arcade as we build our very own retro video game to celebrate World Space Week, which is going to be pretty cool. So we're going to be looking at some kind of foundational computer science concepts and terms. We're also going to be looking at how computer science and coding is going to help us as we actually explore space as well. So it's going to be a good combo of both of those things. And last but not least, Lorraine?
And most importantly, we're going to get you guys involved, okay? So we're going to have some hands-on activities. We're going to encourage you to have some discussions in your classroom or wherever you are. And just like we really want everyone to get involved.
Exactly, right? So excellent. So what we're going to be looking at now is World Space Week and a bit of a definition around that. So why is there an entire week dedicated to it? Well, first and foremost, let's take a step back. If you've never heard of the term space before, it is the vast, endless area beyond Earth and contains all the planets, contains all the stars and all the galaxies and so on. So nighttime when you look up into the grand sky and you see the stars twinkling, that's space, right? The next frontier, the final frontier, I should say. Secondly, Lorraine, why is there an entire week dedicated to it? What's it all about?
Yeah, so this week is a special global week for space, and it's from October 4th to 10th. And it's just to kind of get everyone interested in space and to learn more about it. So to get you guys talking about it, 100%.
Yeah, 100%. And there is a fantastic organization here in Ireland as well that celebrate World Space Week as well. So definitely check out that hashtag you see in the bottom of your screen, hashtag Space Week IRL, or even tweet that out or share that today as you join us. Because there's some amazing initiatives going on and some other kind of activities and events you can get stuck into and get involved with. Third of all, why is it so important? Well, this week helps us unlock the amazing mysteries of space and basically understanding why it's crucial to explore it. Something that comes up quite a lot, Lorraine, when people are discussing space is that, okay, it's amazing to go out there, but it's a lot of money to explore space.
Yeah,
it takes a lot.
Of money.
It's not like just a taxi down the road. You have to build a rocket. A lot of finance goes into it. So understanding the importance of why it actually is important to explore space to help us understand and solve problems on planet Earth as well. So that's going to be a good one that we're going to be hopefully looking at later today as well. And last but not least, right?
As Michael was saying, so why do we even go to space, okay? So doing different experiments out in space actually helps us to understand our planet better, okay? And it also helps us to solve really important issues here on Earth. So It's really important work.
Excellent. So myself and Lorraine have done a lot of the talking so far, which has been fantastic. But what we want you guys now to do is take a moment and pause and discuss the two questions that you will see popping up on your screen. These questions, first and foremost, is what planets can you name that are part of our solar system? So you'll see them right up there in front of you. And then you're going to see, okay, what do you think these planets are made of? And do you think the weather is the same on each one and why? And how we want you to approach this, folks, is think, pair, share. So we want you to think about the answers first. We want you to pair up with someone beside you or somebody that you're with. And then finally, we want you to share it out amongst your class, okay? So hopefully, teacher, you can have a classroom discussion about these questions and then definitely let us know because we're excited to hear your answers as well.
Definitely.
So take a moment now and pause and discuss the questions you see on your screen. So what we're going to do now is myself and Lorraine are actually going to name the planets, starting from the ones closest to the sun and moving out from there. So let's get going. First and foremost, we have Mercury, which will be the closest planet to the sun.
It will be. Then we have Venus.
And then we have our own little ball of dirt, the one we're standing on right now. We have planet Earth.
Next we have Mars.
Then we have our big boy there, Jupiter.
Next we have Saturn.
Saturn has their very iconic rings, which I always loved. Then we have Uranus.
And finally we have Neptune.
Excellent. And actually, Lorraine, somebody spotted it in the Q&A and mentioned it as well. What about our old friendly planet Pluto? Why isn't that being listed?
Okay, so Pluto used to be listed as a planet, but unfortunately, he got downgraded. So Pluto is actually now a dwarf planet.
Yeah.
And well done to whoever spotted that out to us.
Excellent, yeah. A couple of people called that out in the Q&A, which is fantastic. So it's still in our solar system. However, it is just not classified as a planet anymore. It's a dwarf planet, which is fantastic. Okay, brilliant. So what we were talking about earlier on, folks, something we wanted to cover was a difference between solar systems and galaxies. I'm sure a lot of the time people use the word thinking they're the same thing, but they're actually quite different. So Lorraine, do you want to tell us first and foremost, what is a solar system?
Okay, so Michael, a solar system is basically like a big cosmic family, okay? Yeah. In the middle, we have the sun, okay? That's the middle of our solar system, the sun, and it's usually a star. And then planets like Earth go around it, and there's other things in our solar system like moons, asteroids, comets, and they all kind of work together in a solar system.
Very good. And then, okay, so then that's a solar system, and solar is kind of you kind of think of sun when you think of the word solar, so that's perfect. But then what's a galaxy?
Well, a galaxy is much, much bigger, okay? It's like a huge city of these solar systems.
Yeah.
And we are actually part of a galaxy ourselves, solar system, and we're part of the Milky Way.
Part of the Milky Way galaxy. Okay, so galaxies much larger, much bigger.
A lot bigger.
Okay, a lot bigger, and then solar systems. Okay, excellent. So between Mars planet, the Milky Way galaxy,
I'm hungry.
even a galaxy in and of itself, a lot of chocolate bars in there as well. So we can actually break down the planets in our solar system into two main categories. So the first four closest to the sun would be classified as terrestrial planets. Now, terrestrial planets are basically very similar to what we picture Earth to be. So it's kind of like made up of rock and dirt. You can physically stand on it, so you can actually land a rocket ship on top of those. However, the other four, Lorraine, do you want to tell us, what are they called?
They're actually called the gas giants, Michael.
They're called the gas giants. Okay, excellent. So those are the bigger ones. So that would be Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus. And what makes a gas giant different?
It's kind of in the name. They're basically made out, they're like a ball of gas. So you can't land a spaceship on them. And they're made out of gases such as like hydrogen, helium. And yeah, that's kind of the main difference between your terrestrial and your gas giants.
Perfect, yeah. So hydrogen, we'd know it from H2O, from water.
Exactly.
So through those in our creation of water. We have helium from all of our blow-up balloons. So those planets out there are actually made up of gas. So it'd be a lot trickier to land a spaceship on those. That's really important. And we're actually briefly looked at there. A good example of a terrestrial planet would be Venus. And then a good example of a gas giant would be Jupiter. And now Jupiter is our largest planet. But let's look a little bit more in depth on these two examples that we brought up. First and foremost, we have Venus. And we were chatting before our live today, Lauren, and you were saying that Venus is actually one of your favorite planets.
It is, yeah. So Venus is actually Earth's roasting twin. It's the second planet from the sun, and it's almost the same size as Earth, okay? It's, as we said, it's one of the terrestrial planets, so it has a rocky surface, which is solid. So if we wanted to, we could land a spaceship there. However, there is one problem.
Yeah.
It's the hottest planet in the solar system, with temperatures up to 460 degrees.
So you're really going to need your sun cream.
I think so, yeah.
Going to Venus, okay? And it's actually quite unique in regards to its atmosphere as well. So its air is filled with nitrogen and carbon dioxide as well. So that the similar kind of makeup of our atmosphere as well, but it has a bit more of a unique one. Then we're looking at Jupiter. So Jupiter is absolutely gigantic and so big you can actually fit all the other planets in our solar system inside of it, right? It's the largest planet that we have, all right? So when we're boasting about our solar system, Jupiter is the big one, right? And then we also have the fact that it is a true gas giant, right? So unlike the rocky planets of Earth and Venus and Mercury and so on and Mars, Jupiter is a gas giant made of mainly of those two kind of elements that we talked about earlier on, hydrogen, and helium. So you can't actually stand on it, which is going to be pretty disappointing. I always thought I wanted to stand on Jupiter. And then we also have our amazing fact around time warp. So that's pretty crazy, Lorraine. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So guys, basically a day on Jupiter is only 10 hours. However, 1 year is 11.8 Earth years.
That kind of boggles the mind, doesn't it? That's a bit of a crazy one.
Isn't it?
So it takes 10. So a day is just 10 hours, but a year takes 11.8 Earth years to complete. A long time to be waiting for your birthday.
It would be, yeah.
On Jupiter. Okay. Okay, and it's actually really, really cold. So Jupiter is super cold with surface temperatures dropping down to minus 110 degrees. You'd have to wrap up if you're visiting.
It's very different to Venus anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you travel to Venus, get a little bit too hot, take a trip over to hop on over to Jupiter and cool back off. Okay, excellent, folks. So those are kind of our two main examples today in regards to a terrestrial planet, such as Venus, or a gas giant, such as Jupiter. But it's time to start looking at what we're going to be doing today in regards to coding. So we're going to be using this fantastic platform called MakeCode Arcade. I'm sure some of you might be familiar with it before, but if you're brand new to it, let's take a quick look at it. So it's a platform in which you can create your very own retro video games. Now, when I mean retro, I mean like the classic Super Mario Brothers games, Sonic the Hedgehog, Galaga, hint, hint towards what we might be building today, the original Pac-Man, and so on. So anytime there is a game that's really like pixel art based, so it's all kind of like blocky, that would be one of those retro style games. And we can actually code our very own ones on MakeCode Arcade. So it's going to be really, really cool. And it gives us a good kind of understanding of coding concepts as we do so as well.
Exactly. So guys, we can think of coding as a modern language, okay? It's like learning a new language, and we use it to communicate with computers, which is obviously really important. And it can help us to create digital worlds.
So that's what we're going to be doing today as well. We're going to be creating our very own game. And then finally, last but not least, you might be saying, okay, Michael and Lorraine, coding's fantastic and all, but what's the link between that and space? Well, learning how to code and exploring STEM, so that's science, technology, engineering, and maths, can actually help us explore space, whether that is programming a spacecraft to analyzing data from distant planets, or even coding skills being helpful for all sorts of space missions. So Lauren, you were telling me that you wanted to be an astronaut when you were growing up?
I still want to be an astronaut,
Michael.
You
want to be an astronaut. Okay, yeah, that dream is still alive and well.
Exactly.
So this is actually going to be a great experience for us. So coding skills is actually going to be really beneficial. So if you want to explore space in the future, those computer science skills are going to be critical to those space missions. Now, speaking of missions, do you want to hear about the mission we are on today, Lorraine?
I do, yeah, I'm excited.
You're going to see right now a little hint towards the type of game we are going to be creating. Some of our teachers might be joining us to actually recognize it from the retro video game that it comes from. We are going to be basing a game of the classic retro game Galaga, okay? So the setup is this. Imagine you are an astronaut on a thrilling adventure, and you've been chosen to take a top secret mission to Mars. So Mars we haven't actually looked at yet so far today, Lorraine. So we looked at Venus, we looked at Jupiter. Do you have any fun facts about Mars?
Well, basically Mars is known as the red planet, okay? And that's because the soil is made up of iron oxide, and it's the same stuff that makes rust, like if you have a rusty nail. Another crazy fact is that Mars actually has 2 moons.
Okay.
But they're not kind of shaped like our moon. They're shaped kind of irregularly like potatoes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Mars is going to be boasting now, like, oh, you only have 1 moon, Earth? Well, I got 2. And they're potato shaped.
Exactly.
Excellent. Okay, great stuff. So our mission is going to be going to Mars, and it's going to be filled with a lot of challenges, of course, right? The first one is going to be navigating maybe the possibility of dangerous asteroid belts. So dipping and dodging around those is going to be really, really important. So we're going to be looking at what an asteroid is in just a little bit. So what we're going to be doing, folks, we're going to be coding a retro-style video game to act as kind of like a simulator. So before we embark on our journeys, we need to train. So this game is going to allow us to kind of practice dodging asteroids and making it to Mars safely. But Lorraine, why is it so important to practice, especially when it comes to space travel?
So if you want to be an astronaut, you actually have to go through years and years of training. Obviously, when you go out into space, like you're not near Earth, you can't really get any help. So you need to know exactly what you're doing. And obviously, space can be really dangerous.
Of course.
So we have to make sure we practice before we head up.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be really, really important for us to understand as well. So if you are thinking, okay, when I grow up, I want to be an astronaut, well, excellent. Today's your day when you start that training. So your training program is going to kick into play today. So before we do that, however, we're going to take a moment and pause and allow you guys to discuss another question that you see on your screen. So our game is all about a mission to Mars. But why do you think it is important for humans to explore space in real life? What can we learn from it during World Space Week, okay? So this is going to be really, really important to understand, okay, we're not just going to Mars to have a look around and see what it's like. It's actually going to help us solve some problems on planet Earth as well. So we want to hear from you in regards to what you think the answer to this question is. Once you've had that classroom discussion and you've done your think, pair, share, what we want you to do then is on your devices, go to arcade.makecode.com. That's the platform we're going to be building our retro style video game on in a moment, and we'll pop the link into the Q&A as well for you to access. If you have any difficulties, do let us know. We're really excited to hear your thoughts on the question that you see on your screen now. So take a moment and pause to discuss it. MakeCode Arcade. So this is the platform we are now going to be working on. This is arcade.makecode.com. So this is the screen you want to be looking at on your devices. If this is your first time ever visiting MakeCode Arcade, you will see on the top here we have a little carousel that showcases all the brand new features of the platform. The important thing to note is that this platform is no sign up, no sign in. It's completely free and it's browser based, which means you don't even need to download any software for it, which is always really, really helpful for schools. If you scroll down, folks, you will see our projects will be coming under this little banner here. And after today, after you fall in love with MakeCode Arcade, which I'm sure you will, there's actually some beginner skill maps, next level skill maps, and tutorials that you can take part in to kind of build other retro style games as well. But what we're going to be doing, folks, is we're going to be hitting a new project. And what will pop up straight off the bat is having to name your project as well. So we're going to name ours World Space Week.
Yeah, I like that.
Obviously in line with what we're celebrating today. So I'm going to say World Space Week. And then I'm going to hit create. Now, obviously, you guys can name your project whatever you would like, or maybe base it on the space game that you're creating as well. But we're going to be working together now for the rest of the session. I'll show you a little bit of a tutorial of some code. I'll give you the opportunity to catch up with me, and then we'll move on to the next piece as well. So let's take a quick look at our screen. On our left-hand side, we have our MakeCode Arcade simulator. This little Game Boy looking simulator allows us to test our game without ever having to download it onto any hardware. So we can actually play our game here as well. We have a D-pad, we have an A button and a B button. And down here, our simulator actually works like an online video. So we can actually stop it at any point and then hit resume again. If you never need to refresh it, we click this little button. And if we want to go big screen, full screen, we click this little button and it goes into our full gamepad like that. So when we're finished, we're going to be playing our game on full screen mode, which is going to be pretty exciting. Here in the center, folks, we have our coding categories. So we are working with MakeCode, and MakeCode specifically block-based coding. So everything is going to be able to fit together like Lego, okay, first and foremost. And the second piece, folks, is that it's all color coordinated. So if you see me use a block of code today and you're going to be wondering, but where did Michael get it? Just look at the color and it'll actually correspond to the category that I pulled it from. So that's going to be really, really important. And block-based coding is a fantastic foundation to set you out on building off other coding skills and learning other coding languages as well. Speaking of other coding languages, JavaScript and Python is also available in MakeCode Arcade. You can actually toggle over to those at any time at the top of your screens. However, we're not going to be looking at those today.
Not today.
We're just going to be working with blocks, but it's going to be fascinating at the end to maybe jump over to JavaScript and Python and see what our code looked like as well. What's super interesting about MakeCode Arcade as well, folks, is this little share button. Once we are finished with our game, we'd actually be able to share it. So we can share it with a QR code or a URL. That allows us to save our projects or share our project with our teacher. It also allows us to kind of maybe play it on other devices. So we can actually share it out. We can play it on maybe our tablets or our phones and so on. It's going to be really cool. So first and foremost, folks, we got to start thinking, okay, coding is fantastic, but you need to code with a purpose. And we're going to be coding our game that we just discussed. Do you want to give us a little rebrief on what our game is, Lorraine?
Okay, so we're on a mission to Mars, Michael. However, as we said, space exploration can be dangerous.
Can be dangerous.
So we need to train like proper astronauts. And we're going to make a simulation that will help us get through an asteroid field.
Okay, excellent. So because we're flying to Mars, the first thing we need It's a spacecraft, of course,
Exactly.
right? And how we're going to do that, folks, is we're going to find that in our sprites category. So when we're talking about artwork like players, enemies, food, or even collectibles or projectiles, you're going to be finding that in the sprites category. So click on that. And the first one you'll see in our subheading there under create is set my sprite to sprite of kind player. I'm going to drag that out and I'm actually just going to place it there. That's going to go all kind of yellow and gray on me. Can you tell me what's the issue I just ran into, Lorraine, there?
Well, we can't use that block yet. We don't have it inside our C block.
100%, yeah. So this block that's on our coding canvas by default is called onStart. It's an event block that tells my simulator or my computer when to actually run the code I'm giving it. So I need to make sure that this block actually snaps inside of onStart.
Oh, there you have it.
And it's looking good now, right? So it brings it back to life. You have your kind of proper red and blue color there. And now it's time to actually customize that block of code. So first and foremost, it says set my sprite to sprite of a gray square of kind player. So whenever we create a sprite, there's three things we need to do.
Okay.
First of all, we need to rename it, okay? Because my sprite is, and in this case, it's a variable in computer science, and naming your variables are really important. So I need to make sure to click my little drop down on my sprite. I'm actually going to rename my variable. So my sprite doesn't describe it perfectly. So what are we actually creating, Lorraine, that I can name it?
We're creating a rocket ship.
We're going to create a rocket ship. So I'm going to call it maybe just rocket for short.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to hit rocket and then I'm going to say OK. Next of all, to be able to draw my rocket, I'm going to click on my little gray square just here. That's going to pop up this kind of pixel art tool screen for you. And this is really, really cool. So if you have the time to do so, folks, you can actually draw your very own rocket ship just here. And you have your little pencil icon over here. And what we're looking at here is pixel or pixel art. And the cool thing about pixels is that they're tiny little squares that make up all the digital screens that we look at, okay? But they can only contain one color at a time. So that color there can only contain, that little square there can only contain pink. And then we jump over to another color, that's yellow, and so on. But we actually have to build those squares together to be able to actually draw a picture for us. Now, myself and Lorraine want to make sure that we get our tutorials out of the way straight off the bat. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to jump over to Gallery at the top here and use some of the pre-made pixel art tools, pixel art assets the MakeCode Arcade team has made for us. So if I scroll on down, and let's see if there's anything here that can maybe represent our spacecraft. This dog might not be the best one.
Maybe not a fish.
Yeah, maybe not a fish. I keep on scrolling. We have some players here if we wanted an astronaut.
What about that there, Michael?
Oh yes, we actually, yeah, perfect. We actually have our vehicle, we have a plane. So it's going to be a bit more of like a space plane, right?
Okay.
So I'm going to click onto our space plane here. And what I want my plane to be facing, or my rocket ship in this case, I actually want it to be facing right, because it's facing left at the moment.
Going backwards.
Right? Yeah, exactly, yeah. So I'm a traditional kind of video game player, so I always want my player on the left and then it go facing right, okay? So what we're going to do is we're actually going to flip it, okay? And to do that, I'm actually going to click my little icon up here and it's going to say flip horizontal. So it's going to flip it over. We can actually flip back all the way around here. So I'm going to make sure that my airplane or my spacecraft is facing that way, all right? Facing towards the right-hand side of my screen. Now, the plane is red. It looks pretty cool. We can customize it if we want. So I'm going to click on this little tool here. And I can use our fill tool here to maybe make the wings white.
Oh.
Just like that, looking a bit more spacey.
Looks good, yeah.
And then what else do we can actually include the Ireland flag as well. Maybe this can be our Irish spacecraft as well.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at here then, Lorraine?
We need green first.
Green first.
Then what's the middle? White.
Yeah.
And then lastly, orange.
Excellent. So green, white, and orange. Perfect. Our little Ireland flag there on the side.
That's very patriotic. I like it.
So in the bottom right-hand corner then, folks, when we're finished that, we then hit done. Okay? We refresh. And as we can see here in the center, that is our spacecraft. Okay? However, I move the buttons and that plane ain't going anywhere for the time being. So what we need to do is we actually need to include another block of code to allow us to move our plane. We will find that in controller, because we're obviously controlling our plane. Yeah. We click that, and we see a block here that says move my sprite with buttons. I'm going to click that, drag it out, and place it underneath my rocket. Now, a little error is going to pop up, Lorraine. It says move my sprite with buttons, and there's a little triangle here showing me an error. What do you think my error is?
Well, we haven't used the variable my sprite earlier in the code.
Yeah.
What did we call it? Rocket.
We actually changed it to rocket, right? So that's perfect. So folks, that's a fantastic example of debugging. So when we have errors in our code, they're called bugs. And that just basically means that our program isn't running the way we want it to make, we want it to do. However, a lot of the time people think, oh no, I have bugs in my code, I'm a bad coder. That is not the case, okay? Computer scientists make bugs all the time and make mistakes, but debugging, looking for those mistakes and correcting them, is key to becoming a really good coder. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that, correct our mistake, and it's going to say move rocket with buttons. And now if I go over to my simulator, I can now move my spacecraft, right?
Oh, nice.
Looking good. What we want then, folks, is unfortunately our spacecraft can actually take off to outer space, right up by that. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that our rocket has to stay on screen, right? It'll stay on screen. So we do that by going into sprites, and you scroll on down, and then you'll see, okay, we're looking for some other headings here. It's actually found in our subheading of effects, and it says set my sprite to stay in screen. Drag that out and place it just underneath here as well. Okay, I'm going to make sure the last time I know what this bug was. So I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. So I'm going to change that to set rocket to stay in screen. And now my rocket ship actually fly around the screen. Excellent. Okay. Last but certainly not least, we have to have some game mechanics. Okay. So typically in retro style video games, your character would have 3 lives. So Mario would have 3 lives. Sonic would start with 3 lives. And our spacecraft is also going to have 3 lives as well. And to introduce lives into our game, we actually go into info, and we see a subheading here that says life, and we say set life to 3. Now, why is it important to put set life into this green container on start? Because we want that set at the very beginning of our game. And you'll see we have our 3 lives in the top left-hand corner just there as well. So what we're going to do, folks, is we're going to pause now for maybe about 5 minutes and give you the opportunity to catch up with me with my code. So design your spacecraft or your rocket that you're going to be taking to Mars. Make sure it can be controlled by buttons. Make sure it doesn't float off into outer space.
Hopefully not.
Have it stay in screen, and then set your life as well. So we're going to take a moment and pause and give you the opportunity to catch up with our code. Okay, great stuff, everybody. So we have our spacecraft. We are flying it. Literally
flying it.
And we also have our lives as well. As we mentioned earlier on, our mission is to be able to practice dodging asteroids during an asteroid belt. However, I like to equip my spacecraft with some defense mechanisms. So we're actually going to create a projectile that we can shoot from our spacecraft to destroy any upcoming obstacles, okay? And to do that, we're going to need our controller block as well. So I want it to happen when I want the projectile to appear. So that's going to be when I press my A button, okay? So when I press my A button here, I want a projectile to come from my spacecraft here and go off towards my right-hand screen, okay? So that's where the asteroids are going to be coming from. So we actually need another event block. So now on start not going to help for us, work for us. What we need is on button A pressed, and we can actually find that C-shaped block in controller. So if you go into controller, you're going to see there's a block here that says on button A pressed. I'm going to drag that out. I'm going to place it just underneath on start. And what we're going to do, folks, then is we're going to create another sprite, but this time this sprite is going to be our projectile. Okay? So, Lauren, what is, in terms of video games, what is a projectile?
It's basically like a small object we're going to throw from another object, and whatever it hits, it destroys.
Yeah, exactly. Think of Super Mario when he throws a fireball. Okay, that's a projectile that can actually destroy enemies in our game. Okay, so to find projectiles, we go back into sprites, and we scroll on down until we see the subheading, projectiles. And that does exactly what it says on the tin here. It says set projectile to projectile from my sprite with VX50 and VY50. So I'm going to click that, drag that out, and I'm going to place that just inside on button A pressed. Okay. Now this block, quite big, right? Quite similar to our sprite from earlier on. So there's a couple of things we need to do. First and foremost, it says set projectile. I'm actually fairly happy with that. I think projectile is a good descriptor for what we're building here.
I think so, yeah.
I don't think we really need to rename it. Next of all, we have our gray square. So it's time to actually design what a projectile looks like. So you can click into this, You can draw your very own laser beam or anti-asteroid attack here, or missile. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using one from our gallery. So again, toggle over to our gallery up here. And we can scroll on down till we find one that pops up. Lorraine, keep an eye out for any good ones. Do we want to shoot snakes from our
Maybe not. I don't think so.
Maybe a hermit crab, maybe not. Yeah, shark.
Oh, I see something there, maybe.
Yeah, we have our asteroids there. They're probably going to come in handy later on. Oh, here we go. Here we go. We have a few blasts here.
Oh, I like those ones there.
So we have our projectile laser, right? So this is going to be a very modern spacecraft. It's going to be a laser coming from it. So I'm going to click on that. Again, we can customize it here if we want to, but I'm fairly happy with what it looks like.
It looks good, yeah.
So I'm going to hit done. Now, next thing we're going to do, folks, is we're going to look at this block here that has our little error message. It says My Sprite. My Sprite doesn't exist, so that's why I'm getting my bug in my code here. So I need to change that from My Sprite to Rocket, because what I want to tell my program is that, okay, send this projectile from my rocket sprite.
So we're shooting it.
Exactly, yeah. So that from is going to be really important there. I'm going to click Rocket, and then I'm going to refresh my game, and I'm going to test it out. So my block looks okay. I can now press A, and I have a projectile kind of going off into the bottom left-hand or bottom right-hand side of my screen. Doesn't look too right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'd really have to line up your angles there to shoot it. So what I think we need to change is these final two blocks here. All right, it says VX50 and VY50. Now it's going to be a little bit tricky, because I'm guessing a few of you guys might not have looked at coordinate geometry before. What that means is that we have our x-axis down the bottom of our screen and our y-axis on the up and down of our screen. So left and right is x, and up and down is y. Okay. Now, what does that V mean, Lorraine? What does that V mean?
Okay, so V actually stands for velocity.
Okay.
That might be a new word.
Yeah.
But all velocity is just speed in a given direction. Okay, so you see Vx there. That means speed in the x direction, so from left to right, and then Vy is velocity in the y direction, so up and down.
Exactly, right? And so what we want to do is we want it to go straight ahead. We don't want it to go up or down. We want it to go straight ahead from where our plane is. So our Vy, that up and down axis, that should be 0, I think.
I think that would make sense, yeah.
I think that should be 0. So I'm going to go to Vy, and you'll see this little toggle here, and it says 50 pixels per second. I can change that right down to 0. And what I would recommend is you can copy my code here, because I think this might work. However, if you want to try it out, you can also just test it out and test out different figures and see where your projectiles are going, and then do a little bit of trial and error to figure that out as well.
Should we test ours?
Let's test it out. There we go.
Okay, that's
perfect.
Better.
Okay. An important thing to note here as well, folks, is that VX50, I didn't change that because that looked okay to me. We could change that if we wanted to speed up our projectile. So maybe we change that to 75?
75,
just like that. And then we can test that out again. There you go. And the projectile is moving a little bit faster, okay? But because that number is positive, it's going to be going right on our x-axis.
Exactly.
So that's what we wanted to do. But just as a little tester, let's maybe change that to minus 75. And do you have any guesses, Lorraine? Where do you think it's going to go?
I think it's going to go backwards.
It's going to go, exactly. It's going to go backwards from our ship. So it's going to go left on our x-axis. That doesn't look right. So if you run into any of those issues, you then know, okay, maybe the minus isn't working for me. So I'm going to change that back to 75. And then we're going to refresh our game, go full screen, fly around my rocket ship, press A, shoot my projectiles.
It's looking good, Michael.
What's really exciting is it does, doesn't it? We're looking like a proper video game here, which is great. So folks, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause. It's going to be a bit of a shorter pause because it's going to be a fewer blocks. But what I want you to do now is on button A pressed, set your projectile to a design that you've created or from our gallery. Make sure it's coming from your main character, your player sprite, and then have that the VX and the VY accurately kind of described so that you have your projectile going in the direction that you want it to go in. You can do a little bit of trial and error, or you can copy the numbers on your screen, okay? And let us know, because we're going to take just a few minutes pause. If anyone needs any help, do let us know. Okay, brilliant, everybody. It's time to move on. And it's actually that comment inspired me, the one about the designing the spaceships to be really colorful.
Being creative.
I think we got to be a little bit more creative with our background, I think actually,
so, yeah.
as well. So it's just a black background, even though that does fit our space theme. What we're going to quickly do, just before we move on to creating our asteroid belt, we're going to jump into scene. So see this little scene, we're going to set the scene a small bit more. And we're going to find this block that says set background image to. Now, we want that background to be set at the very beginning of our game. So what block do you think I'm going to be attaching it into?
On start?
On start, exactly. So I'm going to place it just there underneath set my lives to. I'm going to drag this block down. And now I can click this gray square and I can actually draw my space background, okay? So let's take a quick look at that. So this is the pixel art tool. We can draw our background. I wish I had time to design.
We're also not that creative, guys.
I'm sure you guys are going to be. But we can actually go into gallery and we can actually find some pre-made backgrounds as well. There's actually one here that's our lovely planet Earth right there in front of us. So I'm going to click on that. We can actually add in maybe a few little white lines as well as little stars, maybe little yellow ones, stars in the distance and stuff like that.
That would be cool.
Add a little bit of color and design to the background. You can design your spaceship a small bit more, or design your background a small bit more. I refresh that now. And there we go. I really set my scene, you know? And maybe add a few more white dots as well. Kind of like distant planets in the background. Outside of our solar system. These are back in the other galaxies. Which we would have looked at earlier on. Okay, great stuff. So now, folks, it's time to actually design an enemy, right? Because what we need to do is we need to dodge some asteroids. But first, we need to actually program those asteroids. So what we're going to do is I want a new asteroid popping up on my screen every second, right?
Okay.
So I don't want to design each and every asteroid. I want it to be popping up every second and different locations, having us duck, dive, and getting that practice in. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to game, and we're going to go to on game update every 500 milliseconds. I'm going to drag that out. I'm going to place that just there. Now, every half a second spawning an asteroid might be a little much.
I'd be a bit advanced. Give us a few weeks, guys.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my little drop down to change that to maybe 1 second. So every second a new asteroid is going to pop up on my screen. Okay. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to have to actually create our asteroid by going into sprites, dragging out set my sprite to sprite of kind player. And then this time we're actually going to change it. So my sprite doesn't accurately describe it, so I'm going to rename that to, what do you think?
Asteroid?
Asteroid. So asteroid, yeah. And then I'm going to hit OK. Then I can go into my gallery, roll on down. I'm pretty sure we actually spotted
I think I spotted it earlier, yeah.
Exactly. We spotted some asteroids earlier on from our gallery. Here we go. So let's go for this one just here. I'm going to hit done. But what's really important, Lorraine, is actually at the end of this block, it says of kind player. We're not playing as an asteroid.
No.
We're playing as our spacecraft, okay? So what we need to do is we need to change that of kind player to of kind enemy. So that's going to be really important later on, okay? So now if we go back into our game, we have our asteroid sitting on top of our spacecraft.
That's not good.
That's not perfect, okay? So what we need to do is we need to change the asteroid's position, okay?
Okay.
And remember, I want it to be coming in from the right-hand side. So we're obviously going to be changing it maybe over this side as well, so this side of my screen. So we change the position of our asteroid by going into sprites. And then it says, set my sprite to position x0, y0. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to drag it just there. Okay? Now, what I want to do is I want this to be the furthest right-hand side of my screen.
Okay.
So I need to find out how wide my screen is, because over here, it's going to be x is 0 is going to be here. Now, however wide my screen is going to be our x number over here.
Okay.
To find that out, we can actually just go up to our set background image, and you will see in the bottom left, we have 160, that's our image width.
Okay.
And 120 is our image height. So what that means is our screen is 160 pixels wide.
Okay.
And our screen is 120 pixels tall. Okay? So keep that in mind. That's going to be important for a few more pieces now in a second. So because I want my asteroid to be on the right-hand side of my screen, what do you think I'm going to change my x number to?
You could change to something. Oh, 160 maybe.
160, exactly. So I can actually drag the slider all the way over to 160. Okay? We refresh. And you will see now our asteroid is hanging out up in the top right-hand corner of our screen, okay? Now, because it's spawning in every second, these blocks are being ran every second, I want to add a little bit of randomness to it.
Yeah.
Because if I know where the asteroid's coming from, I'm not going to really be practicing my skills.
Yeah,
you know?
it won't be very hard.
And I need the skills to be this to become an astronaut. So what we're going to do, folks, is we're actually going to have our Y number. So our Y number just here. So that's our up and down axis, remember? We want that to be chosen randomly every second. And to do that, we actually have to look into a math category just here. So our math category is our purple category just here. I'm going to scroll down, and any block there jump out at you, Lorraine, in regards to having a random range of numbers.
Pick random 0 to 10. Can we use that maybe?
Yeah. So you can actually go pick random 0 to 10, drag that out, and because it's roundy, it can actually be placed inside our 0.
Oh, it fits in.
Fits in perfectly, okay? Now, if you're wondering if you ever see a name of a block or you're looking for maybe a concept, you can actually use the search function up here as well. So I can type in random.
Oh, that's really handy.
And every block that has anything to do with random will pop up, okay? And we'll see it's at the purple color, so if I ever need that random block again, I'll know where to search. Now, we looked at earlier on how tall our image was.
Okay.
So it's going to be pick random 0 to 10, but how tall is our y-axis?
120.
120, spot on. So I can change that from 0 to 120. I refresh, and you will now see every second an asteroid is appearing on the right-hand side of my screen.
Okay.
Looks pretty cool, right? Next, folks, if you're keeping up with us, is that we actually want the asteroid to move.
Okay.
So we're going to move it from right to left. So it's going to be moving with speed in a certain direction. And we looked at that idea earlier on. Can you remind us what that was, Lorraine?
That is velocity, Michael.
It's velocity, so you're spot on. So we're looking for those Vx, Yx blocks again. So we go into sprites, and you'll see it says set my sprite velocity Vx 50 and Vy 50. I'll place that underneath our set asteroid position. And what I can do now, I can test it out. I refresh, and you will see something's going on over there on the right-hand side of my screen. Asteroids keep dipping out. So what we need to do is we actually need to have our asteroid go from left to right. So it's not going up and down.
No.
So Y can be changed to
0.
Exactly. So Vy can be changed to 0. And because we're going from right to left, is it going to be a positive number or a negative number we want in our Vx?
This time it's going to be negative, Michael.
It's going to be negative, because remember we tested it out with our projectile earlier on?
Exactly.
So I can go into here. It's going to go minus 50. And you will see we have our asteroid belt.
Oh, it's looking good now.
Pretty cool, I think. Pretty cool. So, final thing, folks, just to help us out, is what we want is that when the asteroid has left our screen, off left, we've dodged it, we've dipped and dodged past it, we want it to just destroy, so just keep things nice and clean, okay? So to do that, we go into sprites, and we can actually scroll on down. We're going to be finding a block that says auto destroy. It's going to say set my sprite auto destroy. Drag that just underneath here, and I'm going to turn that on. Okay, let's test that out. So what that means is that once the asteroid has gone off stage left, it gets destroyed. So it's not going to make our screen all cluttery and cause our code to kind of maybe get a little bit jammed up on. So good few concepts covered there, folks. A lot of kind of little details you need to take note of. Big thing you remember is if you want you to go from right to left, you're going to be changing your x, a Vx, to a negative.
Okay.
And because you don't want it to go up and down, you're going to be changing your Vy to
0.
Exactly. Okay. And remember, folks, that random block is found in math. So we're going to pause now for about 5 minutes and allow you guys to catch up with us and ensure you're caught up with our code. Because after this, folks, we're going to introduce how to blow up our asteroids if we need to with a projectile, and also maybe how to remove a life if we accidentally clip an asteroid
Hopefully not.
on our route to Mars. Okay. If you have any questions, folks, or issues, please do let us know. Okay, great stuff, folks. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on. If you're not caught up, don't worry. After today's session, I'm going to share the tutorial for this game that we're making. So be sure to stick around. So what we're going to do now is we are going to make it so that when our spacecraft overlaps with an asteroid, we lose a life. But also when our projectile overlaps with an asteroid, it blows it up. All right, so it gives us an opportunity to fight back.
Gives us a fair chance.
Exactly. So what we're going to do, folks, is we're going to look at the sprites category because we're looking at overlaps, right? So when two sprites actually overlap with each other. So we go into our sprite category and we scroll on down until we find a block that says on sprite of kind player overlaps other sprite of kind player. I'm going to drag that out and I'm actually going to just place it over here, right? To the right-hand side of all my other blocks. So it's not connected into any of the other ones, so it should be okay. I'm going to zoom in. So on sprite of kind player overlaps other sprite of kind player. What we wanted it to do is on sprite of kind player overlaps other sprite of kind enemy, right? Because our enemy is our asteroid. Yeah. So we can actually double check that. Let's click on, drag on down and back to where we create our asteroid of kind enemy. Spot on. So I'm going to click this. And it's now going to say on sprite of kind player overlaps other sprite of kind enemy. Now, we don't want the asteroid to keep moving. We want it to hopefully be destroyed upon the impact of hitting our spacecraft, okay? Because it'll look pretty weird if it just moves through us but takes a life as it goes.
Exactly.
So we want it to be destroyed. So what we're going to look for is we're actually going to find a block that says destroy in our sprites category. We scroll on down, and it's actually going to be in the effects category. So it says destroy my sprite. I'm going to drag it there. And it's going to say destroy asteroid, right? But this is going to be a little bit tricky, Lorraine, and I'm sure people might get hung up on this a small bit. Basically, we don't want it to destroy the variable asteroid because there's so many different asteroids on screen.
Oh, true, actually.
We only want it to destroy that one other sprite that's interacting with our spaceship.
Okay.
So we have to do a little trick here, right? We actually have to grab that other sprite from our C-shape block, drag that down, and replace that, okay? So one more time, just to show you, you click it other sprite, drag that down, and put it into destroy. And what that means is that it will destroy just the asteroid that interacts with our spaceship, okay? Let's test that out. I'm going to move my asteroid. There we go. So as you can see, the asteroids are disappearing when it hits my spacecraft.
Great.
Okay? Now, next of all, what we can do is we can actually add a little effect by clicking a little plus icon. So we can have a spray effect, or we could have a little kind of like a warm radial, cool radial, rings, or fire.
I like fire.
So that's the asteroid blowing up, and that can happen for half a second or 1 second. We can say how long that effect will happen for, and we can scroll around, and they then blow up on our screen. Okay? Now, final thing we need to do, right, is that it looks like our spacecraft is invincible.
Indestructible.
So we built it right. However, unfortunately, it's not taking a life from us, right? So we need to add in a little block here that will actually take away a life. And if you remember where we got the block that set our life, it was actually in the category of info. So go back into info, and we drag out change life by -1, and drag it just there, okay? Full screen. And now, when my plane interacts with the thing,
we're down to 2.
I've lost a life, another
1.
life, game over.
Oh,
right?
no.
Sad, right? So what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm now going to use another overlaps block to actually have us fight back.
Okay.
So a projectile that can blow up the asteroids that are incoming. So to do that, simple as go into sprites, scroll on down, on sprite of kind player overlaps other sprite of kind player. Now, what we wanted to do is we're not talking about our player here. We want our projectile and our asteroid.
Okay.
And our projectile is of kind projectile. Right? And we can actually double check that just down here. Set projectile to projectile, right?
Yeah.
So that's of kind projectile, but it's of kind enemy again. Okay? And what we want to do is we want our destroy other sprite block to work again. So we want it to blow up the asteroid once it hits it. So we go into sprites, we scroll on down, we find that destroy my sprite block again. We're going to have to use our little trick because we need to drag our other sprite just in here because we don't want to blow up all asteroids at one blast.
That'll be good for us.
It's a powerful laser, but it's not that powerful. And then again, we can add a little effect by going into fire for 50 seconds and so on. Let's test it out. I shoot my asteroid, it blows, blows up my asteroids, just like that. See them kind of evaporating. But Lorraine, What's happening here? I'm working away. I'm not getting any points.
Not getting anything.
I'm not
no.
getting any rewards, you know? I'm a master astronaut here. I need to get a score. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into info and I'm going to say change score by 1. So every time I destroy an asteroid with my projectile, I want to get a point. And as you can see in the top right-hand corner, I'm now getting points. So the trick here is you can actually see how long you can survive. But if I lose some lives, it's game over. But now I have a score.
Oh.
And now I have a score to beat. So people, so everybody joining us, you can actually test out, play each other's games, and see who can get the highest score.
Competition.
So I'm going to pause now for about 3-4 minutes and allow you to do our overlap blocks. Remember, those are in our sprites category. And what's super important, one more time, you're going to drag your other sprite down into your destroy block because we want to destroy just the other sprite we're overlapping with. All right, a little bit of a tricky one. Let us know how you're getting on. And after that, folks, that's it. Our game is finito. Donezo.
Nearly there, guys.
Yeah. So let us know how you're getting on, folks. Okay, brilliant, everybody. So hopefully everyone is close to wrapping up their game. If they're not, don't worry. You're going to have plenty of time to work on it after today's event. So just before we wrap up, some fantastic space facts shared with us. So do you want to share a few there, Lorraine?
So a day on Venus is actually longer than a year.
Ooh, that is a fun space fact. Any other good ones?
Also, Jupiter has a great red spot. You might have seen it before. And it's basically a storm so big that you could fit 3 Earths into it.
Wow! Oh my day! You need the rain jacket for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great stuff, folks. So what we're going to do just before we say goodbye, myself and Lorraine want to showcase other opportunities you can take part in to celebrate World Space Week. Right? So you've created your game. You're practicing to become astronauts. Let's do a little rundown of other things you can do to celebrate World Space Week this year. You can do a little bit of stargazing. So why not you go stargazing, identify some constellations, create a star chart, or there's even some amazing apps out there as well that allow you to kind of track those constellations. And by constellations, that's actually a collection of stars that kind of make it look like abstract pictures and stuff like that. It's really cool.
Pretty cool. You guys could keep a space journal, and in that you could put in like cool things you learn about space, maybe some fun facts, or observations you see while you're stargazing.
You can do a little bit of a data dive, so you can collect data on the phases of the moon. Moon not mentioned quite a lot today because it's not a planet. But if you want to explore a little bit more about the moon, you can collect data on the phases of it, the positions, and then maybe analyze all that data then to see if there's any patterns in our solar system.
You could be a real scientist, and you could maybe create a model of the planets we talked about earlier, or possibly even make your own small rocket, which would be really cool.
That would be really cool. You could actually do a little bit of creative writing, so write a short story or create an art project based on space exploration. We saw some people actually getting really creative with the pixel art tools that MakeCode Arcade, and then you can share it with the class or family members, or if you're sharing it online, use hashtag #MSDreamspace because we'd love to see it.
Love to see it. You could also maybe start a book club, or if you have a book club, maybe this week you could pick a space or science related book and you could read it together and talk about it after.
So folks, that has brought us to the end of today's event, celebrating World Space Week. We really hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for the engagement throughout the entire session. Myself and Lorraine were delighted with it. If you want to stick around, you're going to be able to see the upcoming DreamSpace live events that we have, and also some teacher training or even club and community opportunities you can take part in as well. And we'll be posting the link to my code as well that we've just worked on there in there. So if you want to catch up on that and finish off your game after today's session, be sure to stick around. But for me, I've been Michael. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you again soon.
We'll see you in the next DreamSpace Live.
Bye.
Bye.